Hello, broadcast media. I'm Jacob Gigliotti, and today I'm going to teach you guys the process of making a news package. Now, it's time to take 5. Tip number 1, choosing a topic. So, the first thing that you're going to want to do is choose the topic of your news package. If you're doing yours for a shop assignment, you're going to want your package to relate to the school. For ideas, you can look to the calendar on the school website. This tells you the upcoming events that are going on at the school. For example, there might be a guest speaker coming in to give a talk to a group of students. You could do a news package on that. Another thing you could do is look at the list of clubs and sports teams. These are perfect for doing packages on. A good news package could reflect well on the team or the club and might help them gain new members. If all else fails, you could do a shop spotlight, which is basically just a news package about one of the technical areas here at Polytech. These need to be very good, however, because it will reflect on the shop and may change the freshmen's ideas on what shop to choose. Tip number 2, scheduling. So, after you've chosen your topic, you want to make sure it's okay with the instructor or the coach of your clients by shooting them an email or asking them face-to-face. You cannot just show up to the meeting or practice with a camera and expect everyone to change their schedule and work with you. That is just textbooks rude, and it looks like an amateur move on your part. After you've made sure it's okay with those included, you want to choose a time and a place to do your interviews. It's important to remember, don't schedule anything for a time where you might not be able to make it. For example, if your only ride home in the afternoon is the bus, don't schedule anything for 3:15 and then miss it just to take the bus. This hurts both yourself and your interviewees. It reflects on you as a producer, and your client, who took time out of their busy schedules to do this with you, is left to hang. To avoid all of this, schedule it sometime like enrichment or any other time you're sure you could make it. One last thing to remember about scheduling, do not be late. For instance, if your interview is at 10 o'clock, don't wait until just before 10 to excuse yourself to shop. After getting your camera ready, checking all of the equipment, and traveling to the location, it will be way after 10. What you need to do is excuse yourself to shop at least a half hour before your interview, maybe even more. This gives you proper time to get your camera ready, check to make sure all the equipment works, and travel to the scene at least 10 minutes early. This way, you can start right at the time and get out of your interviewee's hair as soon as possible. Tip number 3, the interviews. Tip number 3, the interviews. If it's their first time doing an interview, your client will probably be a little nervous and not know how to act around the camera. Do your best to calm them down, make small talk, crack a joke, or anything else that'll calm them and prepare them for being on camera. One thing that I like to do is run a practice run of the questions and make them think that I am recording. During this practice run, your interviewees will probably say the word or quite often, or trail off on their answers. This practice run also gives them a chance to think about their answers and form better ones. After the practice run is finished, ask them if you could do another round. 99% of the time, the answers in round 2 are worlds better than their first time. They will also have noticeably less ums and uhs. One last thing to remember is to ask them to say and spell their first and last name before you leave. This may seem like a weird question, but it gives you the complete and correct spelling of their names for when you are making your lower thirds later during editing. This way, you won't have to email them later asking for it. You'll have it right after your interview. Tip number 4, B-roll. B-roll is a very important thing to have in your news package. It is footage that goes over your interview's audio and helps keep your audience interested in the video, and to help inform them on what's going on. One important thing to remember when shooting B-roll is that if your interviewee says or talks about something, you want to get footage of it happening. This way, you can sync up the audio of the interview to footage of what's being talked about at the very same time. This looks very neat and also helps keep the audience on track of what's going on in the video when they see and hear about the same thing. Another thing that I like to do is when I think that I have enough B-roll, I shoot at least a few more minutes of it. It's a whole lot easier to just not use some extra footage than it is to go and reshoot more if you don't have enough. This takes time from both your schedule and your clients. Also, if you have a lot of B-roll, you can use it to cover up any jump cuts in your interviews or any other time that it doesn't look so hot. One last thing to remember about shooting B-roll, shoot into each individual clip for a lot longer than you will need. This allows you a lot of breathing room when editing. It makes a whole lot easier for you to adjust the length of the clip, and you can choose what parts of the clip make it in. Tip number 5, editing. Editing is the last, but most certainly not least part of your news package process. Editing takes a lot of time, so make sure you have ample time on it. Don't spend any unnecessary time on scene that you could use to edit. You're going to want every last second to adjust or fix anything in the video that doesn't fit in your vision. One thing that you should keep in mind, however, is to leave enough time to export the video. Exporting takes much longer than you might expect it to, depending on the amount of effects you have. If the project is due at 3 o'clock on Friday, don't start exporting at 2:55, because I promise you that it won't be ready in time. I like to start at least a half hour before it's due. One last thing to remember is to use your footage before using anything else from the V drive. Now, the V drive has tons of extra footage or sound effects that you can use, but it's important to know that to only use these as a last resort. You might not get as good a grade if you use others' work. Besides, you wouldn't want someone else taking credit for your videos, would you? Well, that's all the info I have for you today. Good luck in all your future products. Until next time, I'm Jacob Gigliotti, and this has been Take 5.